I was in Kenya teaching writing when my husband took a dhow expedition to the islands just south of Somalia, where the current unites the Arab world with the African. I didn't know he was going to meet Mohammed Kubwa.
Tell me your name and where are we, and tell me a little bit about this town and the fort behind you.
My name is Mohammed Kubwa. I'm the area councillor of this Siu, Pate, Shanga, and Tangawanda.
Kubwa's sister married Fazul Abdullah, the Al-Qaeda mastermind behind the U.S. Embassy bombing in Nairobi and one of the 10 most wanted men in the world.
Our wells are saline. The water is salty. If maybe we can be helped for these desalination plants to transform the water from the sea or from the wells into good water for human consumption, maybe we could at least be better off in as far as water is concerned.
So all you brought back was this footage about a saline well? Where's the stuff about Kubwa and his sister and the Mossad and the interrogation and the terrorist?
The wells was something that I felt I could do something about because I'm a bit of a technologist. But I can't do anything about the kind of harm that people do to each other and this kind of like weird political harm that they get into.
Then I come across a New York Times article about that very well. It was published 2 years before we went to Kenya, all about how fixing the well would stop Al-Qaeda recruitment. I talked to the major in charge. He said, even though he didn't speak a word of Swahili, he could tell who was Al-Qaeda and who wasn't. But Kubwa maintained that he had no idea who Fazul, his brother-in-law, really was.
Tell you that I believe his story.
But I just can't believe
that
in
there
this
are a lot
very
of
small
secrets
community.
that
How many
men
people do you
keep
think
from
were on
women
that
and
island?
women keep from men.
I wonder if my brother knew who I was marrying. We had a normal American wedding, my third, his second. Not polygamous, but serial. I was 31, and he was 2 years older. Kubwa's sister, however, was just 16. Fazul was twice her age. But he had lived in her village for over a year, so at least Kubwa had time to check him out. My husband went to a Muslim wedding. The men celebrated separately. Imagine Fazul with Kubwa, his father, and the other male guests, not knowing. Maybe it's all about the veils. Fazul's was invisible. At the time he married Kubwa's sister, he had 17 aliases. But wait, I find out that Fazul has another wife. His first wife was captured at the Kenyan-Somali border a few miles away and just a few days after my husband visited Kubwa. I had no idea the trip was so dangerous. Fazul trusted his first wife with his computer and $8,000. She was questioned at the African Guantanamo for 2 months. I wonder what she knew that Kubwa's sister didn't.
Your husband was drug trafficking, is that correct?
Yes.
And they were bringing in a ton of money.
You really don't let the outside in. So like you'll go to the school with the kids, but you kind of keep to your own little clique of women in your own little like kind of cult-like setting. So people really are disillusioned. They're not sure because they'll see the Mercedes in the driveway and they'll see how you dress. But I didn't look like the normal mafia wife.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
I was just a very strong personality, and then I had to take over when my husband went to prison, so I had to be stronger and get out there and then collect the money that was on the streets to provide for, you know, my own children. So.
Kenya was the only terrorist-affected country in the world where there had not been a single arrest or conviction. The American authorities were furious. Kabwe and his father were subsequently incarcerated 3 times. In his defense, Kabwe wrote, "Fazul fell in love with my sister. I saw that happen. That's who I am. We all saw that happen. That's who we are. Who would I be to try to stop it? Who would we be? I told him that. We let it happen. They asked if I knew who he was. I said he was a visitor, a devout teacher, a serious person. He married my sister. Once I asked of my questioner, he was an Israeli, if he had a sister. I asked how well he knew his sister's husband. He said, I know him well enough to know if he's a terrorist." Discovering the truth could be gradual, like the salt of the ocean seeping into a well. How can I trust you? How can I trust anyone? According to David Hume, the English philosopher, people only have knowledge of those things of which they have direct experience. What I know about my husband is that he's a good man. I very much doubt that he's a terrorist. But Amina could have felt that Fazul was a good man. He was a lonely guy, attractive, and very religious. We know for a fact of young al-Qaeda operatives to have moved into areas, put large sums of money on the table to marry local girls, purely and simply to establish a bloodline and a financial obligation they seek to turn into a guarantee of a safe place to live. U.S. Marine Brigadier General Martin Robeson. The Americans want to win the hearts and minds of the locals by fixing the well. The al-Qaeda want to win the hearts and minds by marrying in. Our son tells us about planted grass, the term used to describe ninjas in medieval Japan. They were operatives who lived inside the castle. When they had to inform, they died, and so did their families, whether they knew about it or not. Fazul is known as the chameleon. I suppose a wife could be fooled by a chameleon. How many movies are there of women not knowing? The Tailor of Panama, Notorious, True Lies. This is Schwarzenegger telling Jamie Lee Curtis he only killed people if they were bad.
Have we ever killed anyone? Have we ever killed anyone? Yeah, but they were all bad. Yeah, but they were all bad.
Fazul was nearly caught twice. Kenyan police lost all the evidence both times, including his computer and his DNA. Newspapers suggest it was an exchange for $200,000 in bribes. But why did they settle for the $200,000 when the U.S. is offering $5 million? Kubwa didn't turn in Fazul, and neither did his sister. That suggests they didn't know who he was, what they said all along. Or did they fear retribution from the al-Qaeda? Or did they love him so much they wouldn't consider it? So would you turn me in for $5 million? Did I mention that there was someone in the CIA with him? Or that people casually pointed out the al-Qaeda on the wharf back where I was waiting? In this case, the al-Qaeda didn't marry in.
Our wells are saline. The water is
The
salty.
Americans didn't fix the well.
Maybe.
I mean, who are you going to trust?